a freshman at a prestigious university, disappeared without a trace after a sports match, leaving her open car with the keys in the parking lot. The police did not investigate the case, thinking that the girl had simply run away. But her parents and friends understood that something terrible had happened. For 12 years, this mystery remained unsolved, and only after all this time the truth came out. In this video, we will tell you what happened to Shannon Melendi. Shannon Melendi was the joy and pride of her parents, Louis and Yvonne, who moved to the States from Cuba in the late 1980s. They wanted to give their daughter and their other children a better future, and therefore worked hard so that they would not want for anything. Shannon lived up to all their hopes. She was an exemplary student and leader. As a child, Shannon Melendi lived in Miami. After graduating with honors, Shannon entered Emory University in Georgia, where she planned to get a law degree. Just like at school, the girl succeeded here too. But very soon her promising life will end forever. The eldest daughter of Louis and Yvonne Melendi will not even live to see her 20th birthday. On March 26, 1994, 19-year-old Shannon was keeping score at a morning softball tournament. She worked part-time at a softball country club to provide pocket money and allow her to save for a summer vacation she was planning to take to Florida. At 1300 hours, when the half-hour break in the game began, Melendi got into her black Nissan and drove off in an unknown direction. This was the last time she was seen alive. She did not return after lunch. In the evening, unable to contact Shannon, her parents decided to contact the police. But they refused to accept the student's disappearance statement, arguing that this was a common occurrence among young people. They believed that the girl had returned from spring break and decided to spend time with friends. The parents did not think so. They looked for their daughter on their own and put up missing posters. Shannon's roommate found her car in a gas station parking lot. The car was unlocked and the keys were in the ignition. The police did not conduct a search. The police again assured Melendi's family that it was too early to worry. It is worth saying that Shannon loved her car very much, and it is unlikely that she could so carelessly park it at a gas station and, on top of that, leave it unlocked. But the officers simply asked Melendi's neighbor to drive the car back to campus, thereby missing an opportunity to collect valuable evidence that might have been left inside the car. In early April, a man called the Emory University Counseling Center. He said that the information broadcast in the media is incorrect. Shannon's shorts are blue, not green, and he described the ring that the girl received as a gift from her aunt. The unknown person claimed that Shannon was with him. The men promised to call to make demands, but never called back. 11 days after Shannon's disappearance, an unknown man, possibly the same one as before, called the Emory University hotline and claimed to have Melendi's ring. Before ending the conversation, he added that Shannon was fine and missed her family. The call came from a payphone near the restaurant. In the booth, they found a cloth bag wrapped in tape, with Shannon's ring inside. Unfortunately, due to the lack of fingerprints or DNA, it was not possible to trace the criminal. Shannon's family appealed to the kidnapper to return their daughter to them. They continued to put up posters and offered a reward of $10,000. Police questioned everyone who was present at the softball field on the day of the disappearance. They found out that Colvin Butch Hinton, a Delta Airlines mechanic, was working as a judge that day. The man could not take his eyes off the girl and talked to Shannon even during the game. Butch was interrogated. He denied guilt and claimed that after the game he went home, where he made several phone calls. The police checked the phone records and they were confirmed. Another suspicious detail is that on March 26, Butch was late during his lunch break, returning not at 1400 hours, but a full hour later. Butch, 33, was married and had a child. But Hinton was of interest to the police because he had previously served time for unlawful acts against a 14-year-old schoolgirl. Then he was sentenced to 4 years in prison, although he served only 2 years. After his release, Butch moved to Atlanta and got a job as a mechanic for Delta Airlines. In addition, he worked as a softball umpire and taught Sunday school. Police searched Hinton's home but were unable to find any evidence linking him to Melendi. 6 months after Shannon disappeared, Butch's house caught fire. Because the insurance company suspected fraud, the police became involved. When officers interviewed neighbors, they reported that on the day Melendi went missing, Hinton had been burning a fire in the backyard for a long time. The authorities decided to conduct excavations at Butch's site, where they found disturbing finds, dozens of buttons from various women's clothing, and several unburned items. There were 9 rolls of tape in the garage. All this suggested that Hinton was a serial killer. But detectives didn't have enough evidence to charge him with even one crime. The only lead police found in Hinton's garage was a roll of duct tape identical to the one wrapped around Shannon's ring. Unfortunately, such insignificant evidence did not allow him to be reliably linked to Melendi's disappearance. He was charged with arson and insurance fraud and sentenced to 9 years in prison. At this time, more high-profile cases were being investigated, so Shannon's case was not dealt with for a long time. While serving his sentence for arson, Hinton's cellmate told police that Butch had hinted at his involvement in Shannon's disappearance. This forced detectives to try to solve Melendi's case again. They re-examined the meager evidence in the case, the main one being the ring found in the payphone. The jewelry did not help identify the criminal. However, the bag it was in looked promising. 9 years later, Detective John Petrie resumed the investigation as Butch's prison sentence was coming to an end. He found out that the bag the ring was in was manufactured by Millhiser. A company in Atlanta bought the bags and resold them to Delta Airlines. They used them to transport small engine parts. Butch worked for this company as a mechanic. During the first search, the same bags were found in his house. The tape found in Butch's garage matched the duct tape that was wrapped around the ring back. Tiny metal particles were found on the tape. The examination established that such an alloy was used in the aerospace industry. Delta Airlines used it to coat jet engine parts. Investigators found that Butch had 3 previous convictions. One day his wife went down to the basement and saw a tied-up 14-year-old girl. She reported him to the police. Butch was sentenced to 4 years in prison, but he was released early after 2 years and moved to live in Atlanta. There were other episodes involving rape. In 2004, Butch was charged with Shannon's murder. Despite the absence of a body, no crime scene, and only circumstantial evidence, Butch was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 7 years. Having exhausted all his options to avoid punishment, Hinton eventually confessed to Shannon's murder. At a softball game, Butch suggested that Shannon go to Burger King for lunch. He asked to drive his car because his leg was cramped. In the car, he put a knife to his throat and forced him to go to his house. His wife left for another city that day. At home, he abused the girl and then left to take her car to a gas station. When I returned, I made a few phone calls and went to the cinema. He came home around 3 a.m. and disposed of the body by making a fire in the backyard. He was the first person in the state of Georgia to be convicted of murder without a body. In 2012 and 2019, he was denied release. He can apply for release again in 2025.